well, we can talk now to the Shadow Levelling Up Secretary, Lisa Nandy, who is in Wigan today. Thank you for being with us this morning. Well, the drama of the Conservative leadership contest has really been about Boris Johnson, hasn't it? Will he, won't he run? Is he flying back from holiday in the Caribbean, telling colleagues he's up for it? You know, are we all back within the Boris Johnson soap opera?
I mean, the drama is just incredible. The only thing it's not been about is the country. And meanwhile, you've got people whose mortgage payments have gone up by more than £500 on average a month. You've got people paying a very, very heavy price for this ongoing chaos in the Tory party. And whether it's Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak or any of the other contenders who've been floating around this weekend, essentially what the Tory party is about to do is bring the arsonists in to try and put out the fire that they started. It's just not good enough. We need not just a change of Prime Minister, we need a change of government.
Some in your party, though, would say that Boris Johnson is actually the greatest threat to Labour. I just want to have a look. You know, here's Angela Rayner on LBC in July. Boris had this Teflon coating. It's like a little magic, where he was able to get through to the public. Boris had so much going for him. He got an 80-seat majority and the country was really behind him. Here's Lucy Powell in House magazine. Boris, in his heyday, was a very formidable campaigner. He was able to reach parts of the country that other Conservatives hadn't and wouldn't be able to reach. Do you agree with your colleagues?
Well, he undeniably won a big majority at the last election, and then very, very quickly the wheels came off the wagon. I wouldn't trust Boris Johnson to run a bath, let alone run the country. He degraded and debased our politics. He lost all of that goodwill from the country and from his own colleagues in a very short space of time. It's extraordinary watching Tory MPs who put in letters of no confidence in him just a few weeks ago, saying he wasn't fit to hold the highest office, now talking openly about trying to bring him back. It's a sign of absolute, utter desperation in the Tory party. It's time that the public were brought back into this conversation, because there is a clear choice between a Tory party that have crashed the economy and presided over 12 years of chaos, bringing our National Health Service to its knees and soaring crime rates, and a Labour Party that could bring calm and stability back to the markets, be careful and sensible with every single penny that we spend, because it's people's money and they haven't got a lot of it.
You know, you obviously want a general election, that is very clear. But, you know, with your sort of public responsibility hat on, you know, you're talking there about how difficult things are for people. We do need stability. It's been a difficult couple of months, to say the very, very least. Who do you hope becomes the next Prime Minister next week?
Well, Keir Starmer is the obvious answer.
Because that's the obvious answer, but he's not going to be the Prime Minister next week, is he?
Well, but the truth is it makes absolutely no difference at all who the Tory party choose, because even before they crashed the economy and left working people paying the price, we've had 12 years of low growth and the highest tax burden on working people in 70 years. They haven't got a clue how to set this right, because they're the people who created this problem in the first place. We've got to get good jobs back into every community in this country and get the economy firing on all cylinders again. We could become a world leader in clean energy. There are 1 million good jobs on the road to net zero, and we will invest to bring them here. You just heard Jim O'Neill saying there's a strong case for investment to rebuild the fabric of this country from the ground up. That is what is at stake for this country. We've got a clear choice to make, and that's why we're arguing for a general election, not because there's a lot at stake for the Labour Party, but because there's so much at stake for the country.
You say that, you know, it wouldn't make any difference who the next Conservative Prime Minister is. I mean, that's not really true, is it? Look, I get that you really want Keir Starmer in there. I get your frustrations that, you know, there's another leadership contest going on without a general election. But obviously it would make a difference who wins the contest, wouldn't it, for the country?
I don't think so. When you've got a government that is completely out of energy and out of ideas, whoever becomes leader of the Conservative Party in the next week or so is going to inherit the same problem. It's not just that they've crashed the economy and now they've got to find money from somewhere, whether it's raising taxes on working people or cutting public services, as Jeremy Hunt has been floating. It's not just that they've got a very divided Tory party, it's that they've got the same tired, failed ideology that got us into this mess in the first place. The idea that you can grow the economy by investing in a small handful of people, in a small number of sectors, in one small corner of the country, and the benefits of that will trickle down to the rest of us, it just demonstrably has not worked. We say that every person and every place has a contribution to make to the future of this country, and that's why we're going to invest to bring those good jobs to Britain, get money back into people's pockets and get the economy growing again.
OK, well, let's have a look at Labour's economic plan then, shall we? You know, you're sort of positioning yourselves as the party of fiscal responsibility. We know that there is a fiscal tightening on its way, really, whoever wins, but certainly if Rishi Sunak does. The spending review no longer applies. Departments have been asked to find efficiency savings. Would Labour spend more money on public services than the Conservatives?
Well, we've already set out plans to get money into the National Health Service by scrapping non-dom tax status, which we think will raise about £3 billion, and spending roughly half of that on getting more health visitors, more training, more doctors and nurses into the NHS, because we face a crisis this winter. We've got more than 1 million people on waiting lists, and we've got to do something to act now. But what we're really interested in is how you can reform public services. You know, Jeremy Hunt, who's currently the Chancellor, is the person who failed to invest in the National Health Service, didn't bring it up to speed with digitalisation, so that we're spending more to do less. That's why we've said we'll prioritise. When we do borrow, we're not going to borrow for day-to-day spending. We're not going to live out with our means, but we are going to prioritise getting investment into the economy so that we can get public services working far more efficiently and help to people who need it at the moment they need it, not waiting until people hit crisis point before we intervene, which is far more costly and so damaging.
So is that yes, then, you would spend more money on public services than the Conservatives?
Well, we're not going to borrow to fund day-to-day spending. It's the consequences of doing that when you haven't costed it and you don't know how you're going to pay for it are very severe. We've just seen that. They literally crashed the economy with a multi-billion-pound package that they couldn't cost, they couldn't fund. And ultimately, all that help that was promised, those help with energy bills, they just couldn't deliver. When we make promises, we intend to keep them. And that's why every single thing that we propose between now and the next general election will be fully costed, fully funded, and we'll publish an assessment in government of the impact that that will have on the wider economy as well.
OK, because obviously, you know, if everything is going to be fully costed, if you aren't going to be borrowing to fund day-to-day spending, we all know there's a big black hole in the public finances, around £40 billion. That's even after Jeremy Hunt reversed the mini-budget. It was around £60 billion before that, according to the IFS. Would you put up taxes in order to try and plug that black hole?
Well, we've already said that we would expand the windfall tax on the big energy producers in order to get more money back into people's pockets and off their energy bill. Sure, but this is the point, isn't it? I'm not sorry that we're going to be careful with people's money, because it is their money and they haven't got a lot of it. And the last thing that this country needs is more reckless spending when the government has just crashed the economy by saying that they'll target tax cuts to the richest and then couldn't work out how they were going to pay for it. Of course we'll invest in our public services. We built the National Health Service, we created comprehensive education in this country, and in 1997, after years of the Tories degrading our public services, we came in and rebuilt them from the ashes of the Thatcher era. Of course we'll prioritise that, and that's why we said that we would scrap non-dom status and get money into the NHS. It said that we would end the arcane system where you've got police forces up and down the country all procuring their own services separately, which wastes a huge amount of money, and we'll bring those things together in order to get more police onto the streets through the savings that we make there. But we're going to think creatively and smartly about how we spend every precious penny, and we're going to prioritise rebuilding this country, the fabric of this country, from the ground up.
OK, just finally, you want an election. How are you going to get one? Are you going to call a vote?
It's entirely up to Tory MPs now. The tragic fact is that the future of this country lies in the hands of a small number of people who are currently putting party before country. We're calling on them to put country before party and do the right thing. They know that Britain can't go on like this. Everybody in this country knows that Britain can't go on like this. And it is unconscionable that we're going to bring back one of the old, tired, failed leaders from the past in order to put out the fire that they started. We all know it's not going to work. Tory MPs know in their heart of hearts it's not going to work, and it is time for a general election.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Lisa Nandy there talking to us from Wigan today.